Welcome to the Follow the Leaders podcast, where we get a glimpse into the minds and lives of exceptional leaders and hear about their experiences, insights, and strategies for success. On today's episode, we'll hear from one heart-centered, effective leader and hear about their wisdom and perspective. So get ready to follow along. Welcome back to the show. Today, I am joined by a really exciting guest. If you are local to the Madison, Wisconsin area, you definitely know her and her work. Her business is on my summer bucket list, so I cannot wait to visit it, and I'm excited for you to hear from her, and I'm excited to chat with her. Today, I am joined by Therese Merkel. Therese started Tricky Foods, a charcuterie and cheese board business in 2020 at the age of 23. Yes, she started a business in 2020 at the age of 23, and it has grown so much since then. So this is going to be an amazing episode. Therese originally pursued a major in information technology from UW-Whitewater and worked at various software companies doing sales, marketing, and project management. After about 2 years at a large tech company in Madison, she quit with the mindset of getting her life back, which equaled getting back into the kitchen. When the pandemic hit, she thought, screw it, let's start a business, as only entrepreneurs do, and decided to focus on something she loves, food and bringing people together. What started as to-go boxes and platters made in a commercial kitchen grew into her very own brick-and-mortar storefront that now serves wine, beer, and NA drinks along with an event space for private rental commonly used for baby and bridal showers and corporate events. Along the way, she has been able to work with companies like Puma, Fetch Rewards, American Family, and more. And one of her proudest accomplishments to date is currently employing 7 part-time employees and 2 full-time employees to run and grow Tricky Foods alongside her. Therese is also the co-host of the Screw It, Let's Do It podcast, where she and another local entrepreneur, Shelby from Miggy's Bakes, interview entrepreneurs about their stories. Congratulations on all of your success and impact, Therese, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that intro. It kind of just summed up the whole story. So thank you. I'm excited to be on today. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. So can we just start with what your current work looks like? There's so much to dig into the path of how you got here, but can you just fill listeners in on what you're doing these days, what Tricky Foods is, and kind of what a picture of your work looks like right now?
That's a great question because it's going to be funny because in a couple of years, I'll look back and be like, oh, wow, yeah, no, my work has really changed because it's like every 6 months to a year, I feel like my role is completely different, which I think is one of the reasons I love entrepreneurship. It's always changing. But right now, my role is finance and HR because that's what I feel like I'm really doing I've been doing it for a little over 4 years now. And that's kind of like what my role is, which isn't really glamorous. I would say I joke, I'm like a finance pro, I'm in spreadsheets. I'm literally reading finance books every day just so I can try to understand how to grow the business from, the money standpoint. And then the HR part is just, my goal is to make the business run without me. I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs' goals is as they scale, you can't be the hands and feet of the business and the face and the finance and the HR person. Mm-hmm. So it's really employing the right people. And then, for example, this week I'm doing quarterly reviews with everyone. So it's checking in on them, what's going good for them, what ideas do they have, because now they're in the thick of it. So they always bring a lot of good ideas to the table. And so I'm working on just my management skills and growing the team. And yeah, that's kind of what my day-to-day looks like. It's a little bit more flexible, which is really awesome.
That's huge.
Yeah, when you start, it's like you're everywhere all at the same time. And now, right now I'm sitting in our guest bedroom. I was just at the pool 20 minutes ago.
Love that.
So it's a little bit more flexible, but it's a little bit more, I would say, I'm trying to think of the word. It's more studious of work because back in the day it was more creative and I'm making charcuterie boards and I'm talking to customers all the time. But yeah, it's a little bit more of the business sense, which I'm loving. I feel like I'm constantly learning something new and I loved school. I feel like I'm almost in school again. So anyways, that's kind of what my role is nowadays.
So can you give, if someone isn't already familiar with Tricky Foods, charcuterie boards and events, it really doesn't sum it up. There's so much that's going on. And could you just sort of give us the elevator pitch of what Tricky Foods is and the amazing array of things that you offer?
Yeah. So I'll kind of take it back to 2020. So I feel like everyone kind of saw this boom in charcuterie boards. Everyone was at home. Everyone's like, oh, what am I going to do? And we're now spending all this time making salami roses. It just kind of blew up. And so when I started it, I got just like a tiny bit ahead of the trend. I mean, I'm a foodie at heart. I love cooking. And so that's what my whole Instagram feed was. And so I think I saw it just a little bit earlier. And so I started seeing people selling boxes. So I started making and selling, 6x6 boxes or 9x9 boxes. And then I went to little charcuterie cones. Now they're cups. And then we went into larger platters. And as people started gathering again, we started doing even larger platters. And so I kind of came up with these like fun names with them. Like the smallest is the I love you box to tell someone or yourself that you love them or you're thinking of them. And then there's the hangout platter, the party platter. The little cups were kind of coined like COVID cups. But so there's all these names for them. And it's kind of fun. And a lot of times it was like people were gifting them. And now a lot of times people are using them for their own gatherings. Mm. And so we started making those out of a shared commercial kitchen. And now we have it in our own kitchen. So we make those a ton for to-goes, for pickups. We do delivery. And so that's a really huge part of our market. But as gatherings got bigger, people are like, oh, I want charcuterie boards for my wedding. I'm like, well, I don't want to do 10 little boards. Let's like do a whole spread. So then we started doing these grazing tables, which are larger form catering. So our tables have like 45 different items on them. The longest table we've ever done was around 25 feet at this time. Like that's the longest continuous spread we've done. But a lot of tables are like 10 feet. And so we'll do this big array of marble and wooden props and then some greenery and then herbs and signs and cute little tongs, little bowls. Like it's all high quality products. And then the way we style it is really elegant. A lot of times when people are going through them, they're like, oh, it's so pretty. I don't even want to eat it. Or someone doesn't want to be the first one to like grab the stuff on the table. So it really is like art for the eyes. And then it's super fun to eat. And it's kind of like a treasure hunt because there's so many items on them. And then we also do charcuterie workshops. So we teach people how to style food. So, everyone thinks, oh, it's so easy. Like I can make a charcuterie board. Yeah, I mean, anyone can make a board, but it's like, how do you make a rose out of salami? How do you cut cheese to look a certain way? How to use colors and how do you use style and garnishes? And so it's just as much of an art as it is to like paint a picture or do graphic design. It's like, how do you look at it and go, wow? So I've learned that there is an art to it. And we've been able to turn that into like an hour to an hour and a half long workshop. So we teach those now. And then the newest part, and you're right, this does get really long because we do so many different things.
This is great, yeah.
It's all centered around the same exact thing, which is, meat and cheese boards and bringing people together. But so with our current space, the long story short of it is we are now a wine and beer bar and event space for up to 50 people. So just, around 10 months ago, 10 months ago, we moved into our own brick and mortar space. And because of the size, it was way bigger than what I needed, but it was the perfect fit, which is a longer story. So we have our commercial kitchen and then we have the customer space. And so, yeah, we're open to the public 5 days a week from, depending on the time of the year, 11 a.m. until 8 to 10 p.m. And then we're also available for private rental, which, as you had mentioned in the intro, is very popular for private events like baby bridal and corporate.
You're totally right that it is an art and everybody does think they can do it, but nobody can do it like your team does. It is so stunning. I mean, it's funny because I love to eat food, but I am not an artist in any way in that at all. But I watch every one of your reels, like showing the grazing tables. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. I've sent my mom, who is similar to me, like we think we might like, oh, we should try that someday. Try doing that. We never are going to. And I send her the videos and I'm like, look at how beautiful this is. And she's like, oh my gosh, it is a work of art. So it's very impressive. And you really have turned your facility into such a gathering space. I saw you having like speed dating events and you collaborate with other entrepreneurs and have painting classes and cookie decorating classes. And I mean, it's just so impressive with how much you have going on and you do it all so beautifully. Like it's so aesthetically beautiful. The vibe is so good. And you started this not even that long ago at such a young age. So it's very, very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, it's turned into quite the business. And when I started, I didn't expect, I didn't have these plans 4 years ago to have a brick and mortar. I mean, it was probably on my list of about 50 other things that I dreamt of for myself. But I think that's where it's like, well, you just start, you have an idea and you keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this is the way it's growing. Like the people kind of dictated how we were going to grow the business. And that's when I realized like the way we were doing it wasn't sustainable. And then, you know, you start to kind of like look outward and see other businesses that are where you want to be or doing similar things. And it's like, well, how are they expanding? And so here we are, just one foot in front of the other 4 years later.
So I do want to dig in a little bit to that transition from having a mobile business or a business where you didn't have your own storefront and you were, you know, collaborating in different spaces, and probably the admin stuff was from home, or maybe you had a co-working space. And then you made the transition to a brick and mortar business. Obviously, in the world of entrepreneurship, especially when you're young, when you start I was not as young as you were when you started your business, but I was in my early 30s. Like I, you know, was just getting started. I had 3 young kids, and I also started with a very mobile business where I would just like rent the classroom that I needed for the hour, or, you know, collaborate on event space for whatever I needed. And that is, I think, a really great way to start a business, right? Mm-hmm. And yet some businesses really do best when they do have a dedicated space. And so I'm really curious, you know, our listenership is other leaders, entrepreneurs, many of whom are either starting businesses that are quote mobile or thinking about it or started that way. So I'd just love to hear, what were the first rumblings that you had? Where did you start to think, okay, this is actually not a someday thing. This is something that I should make, the transition I should make right now?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because I think a lot of people see our storefront and they're like, oh my gosh, like, I just wish I had a storefront. I want to start a business. Like, I wish I had a brick and mortar. Personally, I can't imagine starting as a brick and mortar. There is no way that I would, no. It wouldn't have been a thing at all. And I always am like extremely impressed when people started out with a brick and mortar and they're still here to this day, because there are stats where when you open up a business, brick and mortar or any business, it's like 20% make it to the first year and through the first year. And then of that 20%, only 20% make it to their 5th year. So, I mean, I think COVID really made us reconsider how we do business, because everyone that was in offices realized they could do it from their home. And yeah, so I mean, I very passionately feel like you should start as small as possible and keep your expenses as low as possible, because, you know, we're doing the most sales we've ever done, but we're also spending the most we've ever done. We're entering our 5th year of business, or we've been in business for over 4 years. I'm thankful that we have, you know, the brand recognition. We have so many repeat customers where it's like, I don't have to spend anything for the most part on marketing or trying to get employees, because our business is already out there. So speaking from kind of my journey, so I started the business just making boards for my kitchen, my home kitchen, which is not something you can do as a food business. You can do it as a bakery business, which is why I was kind of like, oh, I'm not cooking food, but any food that needs to be refrigerated needs to be in a commercial kitchen. So I naively started from my home, and then very, very quickly found out I needed to be in a commercial kitchen. You know, I was looking around at a lot of commercial kitchens, and even the price to rent a standard shared commercial kitchen, it's expensive depending on where you are in the world. I would say on the low end, like dirt cheap low is like $15 an hour, but on the high end, I've heard in some cities around 100, you know, 100 an hour, which I mean is crazy. But if you're in the middle of a city and there's not a lot of places, right. Or, you know, when you are thinking lean, it's like, okay, would a restaurant that's not open when I need to be there, would they let me rent to them? And so I reached out to so many restaurants, and so did a lot of my friend Shelby, who owns Mickey's Bakes. She ended up working out of a restaurant when they weren't open. And so then these people, they're not expecting an income from rent. And then when you kind of pitch it to them, it can end up working out good for both of you. You get cheap rent and they get additional income. So I ended up finding a shared commercial kitchen that was brand new. I mean, there's a long, crazy story on how I found it. But basically, I was the first renter there. The first food inspection that had gone through was when my business was there. And so they were willing to negotiate an extremely reasonable price. You know, it's like mid-June in 2020, and I'm looking for a kitchen. So they're willing to work with me. I'm willing to negotiate a very low rate. And so with a business that's more labor intensive, you know, to make a large board could take up to an hour. It's like, I need to like make sure I'm not spending $30 an hour being in the kitchen, especially when it's just one person. You don't have a team of a bunch of people to make it really quick. So being in that kitchen is one of the reasons I feel like I was able to expand, because I was able to profit pretty quickly because it wasn't going all to my expenses. So I was in that kitchen for, the first 3 years. And that whole time I had this mentality of like, this is going to be short term for me. I think I started to feel that way more as like they got more renters. With being in a shared kitchen, I really just didn't have the control of who was going to be in the space, what times people were going to be using it. And so what I had found as I started growing my business, and my philosophy was say yes to everything. Make hay when the sun shines. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm working until 4 a.m. Like, I'm taking every opportunity because I'm testing if this is a viable product in business. And so I got to the point where my first employee kind of landed in my lap, but I found that like having employees made me double and triple my output, and I still had energy to take more inquiries. So I immediately saw like, if I had a really busy weekend and I was working super hard, I would miss inquiries and sales and last minute orders. And so just having one other person, that first employee makes the biggest change. And then the next ones are extremely helpful too. But it's like the diminishing return of value, where it's like that first glass of water when you're really thirsty is like a huge impact. And so having my first employee, I realized, okay, this is huge. I started getting more and more employees. But what I found is it was difficult to get them bought in when, again, I couldn't control the environment in the kitchen. Our things would move. I was always on call because anything could go wrong. The dishwasher be broken, raw meat somewhere, like the ceiling was falling. There were a lot of things that had happened at the kitchen where I knew my employee, it was hard for them to work independently without constantly being in contact with me. So kind of how the story goes next is I was constantly on this like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, where I was like, do I want to keep doing this business? This is really like hard in this type of unpredictability. And I'm working like a dog. Like, why did I leave my corporate job if I'm just going to keep working like a dog and not even getting paid as much as I was at my last job? I still, though, believed that I could build it into something where it could work for me instead of me working for it. And so I started reading this book. It was recommended by multiple people. It was like, why most small businesses fail and what to do about it. And basically it kept bringing up businesses like McDonald's, the most successful business in the world, they would say. And it's like, how do you create processes that are so straightforward? And how do you create an environment that's so predictable that everything is exactly where you expect it to be all the time? And, where you can kind of control it all. And so anyways, I started thinking like, how can I create an environment that works for me and not against me? And at that same time, my friend Shelby, who owns Miggy's Bake, started looking for a storefront, and she had found a storefront that had another storefront next to it. And she's like, we should both do this together. So that kind of got my wheels spinning and got me thinking like, I could actually do this. If she's going to do it, I think I could do it. And so I started dreaming up what a storefront concept would be. And that didn't end up working out, that specific scenario. But as we now know today, I did end up finding my storefront. And I did end up designing it in a way where, we have our kitchen, everything has its place. I'm able to control the culture and, well, of course, control to the best of my ability, control the culture, the types of people that are in our space, and kind of the standard at which I expect people to leave the space and interact with each other. And so that has helped grow the business immensely.
Two things that you mentioned cannot be understated is that you had community, you had a colleague who, it matters so much who you surround yourself with as far as mindset. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. That growth mindset is just so enormous, because if you don't have anybody around you that's saying that, then it's like you're going upstream. But as soon as you have one other person that's like, yeah, we could do that. Let's give it a go, that can make such a huge difference. And then the other thing that you mentioned was that you're just willing to try so many different things. You tried the commercial kitchen rental. You explored many different storefronts. The first thing that didn't work out was not the end of the story for you. And I just think that is so important and cannot be understated. That is why you are so successful, is your willingness to just be like, okay, yeah, let's try that. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, let's try that. Oh, that worked. Great. Okay, let's try something else. Okay, that didn't work. And I just think that is the key to success in business. And so thank you for sharing kind of all the ups and downs and not just the ups, because I think that is like the real truth and is what sets successful entrepreneurs apart.
100%. And even when I started the business, I kind of think of it as phases, like the dreaming, the motivation phase, the finding the friends, like figuring out the business. Now I'm at this like scaling and refining stage. But I would listen to so many books about like motivation and confidence. And it's like the fastest way to build confidence is to fail quickly.
Totally.
Like keep trying, And then when you flop, keep going. And so I think I'm so fortunate to have found these business owner friends that are in similar stages of life that I am, other women, similar ages. And so the amount of stuff that doesn't work out is, I don't know if it's more or less than the things that do work out, but like having someone to be like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what happened, or like this embarrassing, not even embarrassing, this like heartbreaking story, or like this rejection. And I think when you turn it into something like, it's kind of funny, like you're not going to believe like how badly this worked out for me, or, it's not always like funny,
Right.
but it is more funny when you have someone that's like, yeah, that exact same thing actually happened to me. So I think, like I said, fortunate to have other business owner friends that are in similar stages of their business too. Like that's really important. I found Shelby when I'd started my business about a year after her. Mm-hmm. But I had been doing it full time for a little bit longer. So I kind of pulled her and I'm like, you need to be doing this full time. And then I got my first employee and I was like, you need to get your first employee. But then she got the storefront and I was like, I now need a storefront. And so it's constantly like pulling each other up with you,
Yeah.
which, and I should say one other thing, like with getting brick and mortar, it wasn't like a clear, at the time, this is like absolutely the way that we need to go. Like there are people along the way that had given us the advice, or had, I should say, given us the advice. We didn't ask for this advice. They would say like a storefront, a brick and mortar, that's where your business is going to go to die. Or, that's so out. You need to be online only. I think that's when you have to think about like, what do you want out of your life? And how do you want, your business to function in terms of how you want your lifestyle to be? I knew I wanted to remove myself from the picture a little bit more and have my team be able to work without me. And I knew that's why I needed the environment.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like you just said, that there are things that are not going to work out. And so you just had the faith in yourself, I would assume, that like you're going to do this brick and mortar thing. And if you have to adjust the plan along the way, you will. It's interesting. You were describing about how when you first started at the kitchen that you were renting hourly or in little ways, and how that kept your costs low and it allowed you to take steps that felt reasonable as your business grew. I have to share a quick story that one of my business projects, so I started my business in 2013, and in 2017, I started collaborating with another small business owner to create a summer day camp. And so it's a creative arts summer day camp, and our working relationship grew from these like small collaborations that, an event here, an event there. And it was like, wow, this goes really great. Let's see if we can put a camp together this summer. And the first summer we thought, okay, let's see if we can get 8 kids at camp. If we can get 8 kids, that's great for a first go. Our costs are covered, all of that. We rented space from a facility for the camp and we got 40 kids that first summer. And so then we were like, oh, we have hit it big, like 40 kids, we've hit it big. We need a space. So we decided in late 2017 that we needed a space, like our own space, for summer of 2018. So we worked with a realtor, we looked at spaces, we started working with a builder to draw out a plan. We were thinking about putting in a letter of intent on the space. And then we had a couple delays with waiting for answers of things. And then we opened registration for the following summer and we sold out immediately and needed to double the amount of kids that we had. So if we had gotten what we thought we wanted, we would have limited our growth so much. And then on top of it, then there was like the flood that summer or whatever. So it was a lot of things that told us like that was not the path to go at that time. And it was the best thing to happen to us because it allowed our business to grow so much. Now we have 400 kids this summer. I just loved when you were describing how you just tried something in a small way to test the idea. And you didn't take the leap into brick and mortar world until you were sure that it had sticking power, that you knew your numbers. You knew exactly how much it was going to cost you to create this and that. And so I just think it's such an important story, I think, yours and combined with mine and so many other entrepreneurs, you don't have to have the answers right away. You don't have to know exactly where your business is headed from the get-go. Try something, learn as you go. And so I just wanted to share that story because I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. No, I know. I feel like you can't have the whole blueprint of what your business or your life is going to be. But if you just keep going in the right direction and like, meeting the right people and saying yes to the right things. And, you hit a lot of things that sometimes don't move the needle, but if you can move the needle like a little bit every day, eventually, now I've been like, let's see how many days, like over 1,000 days every day I've been working on this. So it's like, if you work on anything for over 1,000 days, it's just a tiny bit every day at least.
Totally.
Like, yeah, no, that's great.
I'm excited for you to, even as yours and Shelby's and your other community of young entrepreneurs, as your community continues to grow and your businesses grow, I'm excited for you to keep growing together. And that you're totally right that like having that community is so important. One of my other work projects is a professional development group for moms that own businesses. And one of the groups has been meeting every other month for 9 years together. And so our businesses in that group are all about the same age. You know, we came together in the beginning stages and we all have kids as well. And so our kids have grown along with our businesses, but then we have another group and most of the people in that group are in their first, 1 to 4 years in business. And so I'm just like excited for that group, just as I'm excited for your group to grow, because it's just that historical knowledge of each other's wins and losses, the ups and downs. You can just be real with each other. It's really super, super invaluable.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious, what has surprised you most about having a brick and mortar in both, let's say, in the ways that have been pleasant surprises and then also like a surprising challenge?
Let's see. I would say having a physical space has brought like a whole new sense of pride in life to the Tricky Foods team. I feel like the culture has gotten really, really awesome. And there's a lot of friendships that have blossomed from it. We're very active on our Slack channel. There's constantly like shout outs and updates, and we have a suggestion thing or just a place where people can constantly communicate with each other or celebrate each other's birthdays. So I feel like the culture has been really, really strong since having the storefront. There's also this just like new sense of pride that my employees have for like their work, because they're now, I'm not just the face of the company, like they're now the familiar face that like greets the repeat customers. And so I feel like there's a lot of pride, and I love that. Also, the fact that they were my first employees in the store and they were there kind of putting together the furniture. Like I have an employee that's been with me for over a year now. She's my first full-time employee, and she's like helped paint the walls and the door frames. So you can tell like there's this feeling that they kind of helped build it, and they did. I mean, when I opened the store, it changed everything. It's a whole new business concept that's been added on. So that's been one really pleasant surprise. One of the challenges I would say is just with staffing. So now that we're open to the public and people can come in and get wine or beer, charcuterie boxes or boards at any time, now there's like staffing to make sure that they're available for people, but also enough staffing to make sure that we have enough to make all of our orders or prep all of our things. And then, if things get slower, if the weather's bad and no one's coming in, it's like, how do you adjust those hours? So for example, some numbers I can share would be when we opened up the store in September, that was the beginning of our busy season. So in December, we would get up to like 500 to 600 labor hours in the month. Then come January, our sales, they're cutting like a third or a fourth. It's like quarter one is nothing compared to the fourth quarter. But like to have to adjust those labor hours and stop thinking like we're not in go time anymore, we're in slow time. And then to like, we went down to then 300 labor hours. So that's almost cutting it in half. So it's just, I think, trying to understand how to staff the store. And we're also a demand-based business. So like when it's graduation, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, like that's where we need more people. And so you're constantly trying to think ahead. So that's been a bit of a challenge. Back in the day, it was just, okay, we have orders or we have an event. So like, you're going to be here for this. But now it's, more continuous. So there's a lot of other things, but those are the two that kind of come to mind. Yeah.
Okay. That makes total sense. Okay. So if we back up before your now very successful entrepreneurship career, what was young Therese like? Were there any examples that came to mind where you like gravitated towards leadership, or is this more of a new thing for you?
So young Therese, so I used to be homeschooled. So I had a lot of time at my home with my family. I was definitely very creative. Like I always wished I could go on a bus or like have a cafeteria. And so I'd like made a bus out of paper and I put it on like, I'd make my family like put on strings and like walk around the house with a bus kind of on them. Or I'd make fake menus and pretend I'm a cafeteria and I'd be like, here's your schlop, and, put it on their plate, and I make lunch for everyone. And so I was definitely creative. I feel like I've been entrepreneurial since I was little. Like, so both my siblings are entrepreneurs as well. We all run our businesses full time. My parents are not entrepreneurs, but I feel like seeing how hard my dad worked with his job and then seeing my mom be a stay-at-home mom, I feel like we all kind of wanted to live life on our terms and work the way that we wanted. And so, yeah, I would say like little on, I would say the creativity definitely prompted me to have my own little businesses. So there's this common joke in my family where I had St. Teresa's Hotel or Susie's Diner, which is my mom's name. And so I would literally like be on my computer, make menus, make registration sheets. I'd set up a table in this corner of my house. And, all day long, I would just be there like hoping my family would come and, rent a room. And then I'd clean their room and set up shampoos and conditioners. And I'd set up events like movie night or game night for the hotel guests. Or I created a whole map of our home and had like little keys for people. And I would be like, oh, it's the summer. Here's our summer promotion. And so then I would like literally dress up like a waitress. And this is when I was like middle school, like early middle school. And so I'd dress up as a waitress and take their orders. And then I'd go in the back and ring a bell and I'd be like, orders up. And so it would all just be me like by myself. Cause I would say I didn't have a lot of friends growing up because I was homeschooled. So I played with the kids in the neighborhood. And then I was able to get all my schoolwork done like super quickly. I could get all my schoolwork done on a Monday for the whole week. And then the whole week I would spend watching TV, playing on my computer, or like running my hotel. And then it was, it's actually hilarious. Like anytime someone comes and visits, like my parents, like one of my parents live in Milwaukee, we'll go through and I still have those sheets and the registrations and the receipts. And I'd be like, your total comes to 10 kisses and a hug or something like that. So and then, I'd have my lemonade stands. Then we'd grab our wagon and we'd go door to door and try to sell lemonade, or I'd start painting rocks and I'd sell them to our neighbors. And then it would rain and then all the paint from the rocks would disappear. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I hope they don't ask for a refund. Another silly thing, it was mostly my brother, but we would get pulled into it, we would, during the school day on a Monday, go around the neighborhood and go through people's recycling bins. This is when the bins were smaller than they are today. And we would grab out their aluminum cans and then sell the aluminum by the pound. That's great. We had the police called on us though, because they're like, why are these kids going through the garbage? So that was hilarious. But like, we thought it was awesome. Like you could make hundreds of dollars. So, like we would just see the price of aluminum change and then we'd bring it in on a high day. And then my brother, he started his first business. I watched him do it and he's been doing his business for over 10 years now. And I watched him do it. I'm like, if he can start a business at 17 and like do this much in sales, I think I can do it too. So yeah, I feel like we just had a lot of free time and our parents didn't give us, an allowance or give us things. It's like, if you want something, you have to go work for it. And so I would like negotiate with them like, hey, if I clean the house for 8 hours, there were certain price points that they would give us. So they'd give me $1 for cleaning the bathroom, 25 cents per load if I folded, 10 cents if I put it away. So I would make this whole list and be like, if I do this all day, I can make $13. It'd be a full day of work. So that's what I did before I could legally work. And then I got my first job like right when I turned 15. And, the rest is kind of history. I've had at least 10 jobs since then. So I feel like just the work ethic has always been instilled in us early on. And like you have to earn what you make. Like no one's going to give it to you is definitely a mentality that we've always had. I just always felt like this responsibility of no one's going to give it to me. Like if I have to work for it. Like if I want to go to college, like I need to work for it. So that was instilled early on. And that, work ethic with creativity, I feel like kind of turns into entrepreneurship.
Totally. And I was just going to say, isn't it so wild how close what you are doing now is to what you were doing at home in middle school? Like running your shop, setting prices, having guests, hoping people would stop by, like all of those things. Like how isn't that so crazy? I feel like so many business owners are doing what they acted out as kids or what they started doing I certainly am, like you are.
Yeah.
I just think it's just so interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely true. I genuinely believe that people are born with a passion and a purpose. Like the food thing, I'm obsessed. Like I have been so deeply obsessed since like I said, I was homeschooled. I would sit in front of the TV and just watch the Food Network. And then I would go practice in the kitchen with my mom. And, then I started this little restaurant of mine and my first job was in the food industry. But I was swayed to go towards IT because my dad's advice and anyone that loved me would say
society,
like,
right?
Yeah, society. Yeah. Like everyone is saying, if you want to make money, you need to go into technology. Like you're not going to make money in the food industry. And I mean, I'm grateful that they gave me the best advice they could. And I'm happy I got this tangible degree in information technology. And it did give me all these incredible opportunities and the ability to pay off my school and, all that stuff because of these jobs. But now I am back to what I love, and it is food. And I don't know if I sent you the picture of like me when I was 13 with like a chef hat and a bowl. And I'm just like,
Oh,
but like,
we will have to share that. You
yeah,
definitely have to. If you didn't already send it, I would love to see it.
I'll
Yeah.
send it. That's when my mom would make us
Okay.
take annual pictures at JCPenney's. And that was my hobby photo. So like my brother had a basketball, my sister had a volleyball, and I just had like a chef hat and an apron.
Oh, I love it. And just the way you said, I'm like back to what I love. I do feel like that is the gift that business ownership gives, especially small business ownership. I'm sure it's different if people are like in venture capital and they get huge, whatever. But for small business owners, I feel like so often when we finally like return to what we love, that's when we are truly fulfilled. And I mean, I definitely like similar path to you was that, society tells you you've got to go get a degree in this and that and take this path because this path is going to make no money. But at the end of the day, it's so fulfilling and so cool to hear that you are doing what you were doing as a kid and you're making it work and you have that growth mindset. It's like why I love that question, because I get to hear stories like that. And we will definitely share the picture of young Therese.
Yeah. No,
I
definitely get like really passionate when I talk about just like my love for food. That's why one of the core like philanthropy things we do is work with children, because like CEOs of Tomorrow is an awesome organization that's located in Madison. And it's about just like introducing entrepreneurship to children at a younger age. And it's around something that they care about and it's for a purpose that they care about. So like I use food as my medium to bring people together. I'm sure that stems from my family dynamic. We always would get together and the food is at the center. We would just, like there's always a bowl of candy, there's always popcorn. And so I mean, that's common for a lot of people culturally. Just food brings people together.
Totally. So I have 3 kids and they're all teenagers. And so we're starting to talk about like what's next. I have 2 that are in high school, one that's going to be a senior. And so this is sort of the message that I'm trying to give them is like, do what you actually care about. If you're going to go to college, go take classes that you're actually interested in, get a degree that you're actually interested in. If you're not sure if college is the right next step, do something you care about. Go try out an industry, figure out what is like actually feels exciting to you, because it's just going to make for such a more fulfilling career. And so I'm just like so impressed by you and all the ways that you just follow that. You just like do it. You're doing what is truly authentic to you. And that's really, really inspirational. And I think people even much, much older than you really struggle to like admit to themselves what they want to do. So I'm really excited to see what is next for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I just add one other thing? Just
Absolutely.
Real quick. Well, one of the things that you mentioned, I just want to say was a lot of times I feel like people say like, how do you know what you love? Like I didn't have that, JCPenney moment at the age of 13 with like, your chef hat moment type of thing. But I feel like what really helped me was when I got my first job at 15 in the food industry. And then I worked at a couple of retail places and I started working at tech companies and I tried so many things and I just kept saying yes to opportunities and finding things. And I realized like I learned so many positive and things I wouldn't want for my future along the way. And so I just don't think you can wait to like jump into your future. Like your future is now. So you have to start trying something now and then rule it out as quickly as possible if it's just terrible. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there in case people are struggling to figure it out.
I totally agree. And it's like the prequel to what you're doing now, just continuing to try things with your business, figure out what you like. Like you started this conversation and said that every 4 months your job looks totally different. And that's, I think your willingness to adapt and try new things and see what's next is like totally the way to go. And along those lines, I'm curious, what is next for you and Tricky Foods? Do you have anything that you can tease of what's something that you have on the horizon, or any just like personal, what is next for you if you could like wave a magic wand?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with Tricky Foods, I'm always like, I do have this big, perfect world scenario of what it could be. But it's hard for me to just keep my eye on one single thing. Cause like I love Tricky Foods, but I am more than just like the owner of that business. Mm-hmm. Like I'm recently married, as I had mentioned in our conversation before we started recording. And I have like a very big heart for family and all that stuff. So for Tricky Foods, really, I would love to just see what a full year in the store looks like. I would love to keep expanding it. Like I do have a dream of one day having multiple locations, whether that be franchising or own multiple locations out towards where I'm from in that area. But I'm still testing and refining like what we have now and just trying to like lean up in a sense and figure out how we can just work more efficiently as a business. So that's kind of where that is headed. And then the podcast, we do have this group, Let's Do This podcast. So we're constantly like trying to think of ways to grow that. And that's been really cool to be able to learn from other entrepreneurs. And it's kind of like being in a group project where like everyone is super motivated to see it be successful. So that's been really fun too. And we've got some really, really interesting upcoming guests there. And we're actually traveling to Door County for our first like traveling trip. So that is really cool. And then in my personal life, I got married a couple months ago, and we're really interested in getting into real estate, like owning either a duplex or a 4-family or something like that. That's kind of my husband Kennan's dream. He's seen how flexible entrepreneurship can be, good or bad. Like,
right.
It can, depending on the season that you're in with it. But he would like something like that on the side, and then eventually that become another hustle of ours or his main hustle. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now with it. So I guess I'll listen back to this in a couple of years and see how well it aged.
Totally.
I'm always open for other things, but that's what's on my mind right now.
Okay. Well, I love it. And I love that you're putting it out to the universe. So who knows? I mean, if there's any listeners to this podcast that have an amazing opportunity for Therese, she's your girl. She's on it. So, okay, I have a few last final wrap-up questions for you. If you could give yourself a message for your first day on the job with the first charcuterie board that you were making, with the wisdom and experience that you have now, what would you tell yourself?
I would say, and this is advice that I did hear though early on that it's sticking with me, is just like stay the course, trust the process, surround yourself with the right people, and keep believing in yourself and your dream.
I love it. That's great.
And I feel like I did hear those things. Like those are like the books and podcasts I was listening to. So I would just keep telling myself that.
Okay. I love it. That's great. So, okay, you have so many things going on. You have to keep track of so many things. You have the staff, you have the events, you have all of the food that you produce. Is there a tool or strategy that you use to stay organized and effective, whether that's like a tech tool or a paper tool? Like how do you manage all of these projects?
Yes. So I used to be a project manager, and literally we would just talk about this all the time on like, how do you manage deadlines and yada, yada. So for me, I'm obsessed with my Google Calendar. Everything is in it and everything is color coded. So, I can look at it from a bird's eye view and see, okay, everything in pink is what I'm doing with my friends. Everything in yellow is my workout scheduled for the week. Everything in red I can't miss, and blues are like tasks that are flexible. So I can look and be like, oh my gosh, there's way too much red. Like something needs to go. So I've been obsessed with my Google Calendar since probably sophomore year of college. So that's been a tool I've been obsessed with. And then my Gmail. So like anytime someone says something to me and it's a task, I'll email it to myself. And then I can color code it on my emails as well, like high priority in red, and then I have different priorities. So that helps me a crazy amount. And then those are two like work things. I also put personal things in both of those. But I also always just have like a blank notebook with just, regular, cute, whatever notebook that I can wake up every day and journal just a mind dump of what's going on in my day, how I'm feeling. And so that's my best like mental health tool. I definitely, that's how I help with my overwhelm. Yeah. How I help manage it.
All right. My last question for you, for now, until we grab coffee after this, is if you had a day off, totally off, like I know that you say you're flexible, but still as a business owner, there's always something going on in your mind. So you had a day off, you could accomplish nothing, no emails, no calendaring, nothing, and you could not accomplish anything productive for your personal life or your work life. What is one activity you would do and one place you'd go to get something to eat?
Okay, I have two answers for this. So if I can't be productive, that at my core is difficult. It is difficult. And I'll just share a quick story. So I recently went on my honeymoon in Mexico, went to an all-inclusive for the first time. And that was our day. So we'd wake up, and I did not like that. I like having something. I love having something on my schedule. After a couple days of that, I was like, I need to schedule like early morning yoga. I need to schedule the sushi making class for us. Like we need to have dinner reservations. And so I like the productivity. If I had to be forced against my will to not be able to do anything productive personally or professionally, I would spend my day just with my family, my sister, my niece, Sunny, brother-in-law, Kenan, his mom, who's a good friend of mine, my parents, like I would just spend time with them, probably like on a boat, on a lake, by a pool. I love doing those things. And then food, one meal. I love all food. I would probably go to a supper club and get like a steak dinner.
That's great.
Yeah. I found that I love having, like, even if I'm off, I would love like 2 hours of productivity every day, whether that's like reading a book or doing emails or creating something. Like, I really do feel like the life I've created at this point with where the business is now is like, I don't need a vacation from it. I don't need a day to completely decompress unless it's a really busy week.
Sure.
Then I might just like watch TV all day.
Okay. Well, I think you're in very good company with our listenership. They're all on, leaders and entrepreneurs. And so we all totally relate to liking to be productive and busy because we chose this life. But I will be wishing a day like that for you, even if it's not the whole day, because that will be torture.
Yeah.
That sounds lovely. Well, Therese, thank you so incredibly much for joining me for this conversation. I loved chatting with you and hearing the story of how you got here and all about all of the amazing things that you have going on. I hope this is just the beginning of our connection because I'd love to stay in touch. And I'd love it if you could please tell listeners where they can find out more about you and Tricky Foods and reach out to you if they have any questions or they want to invest in your amazing company.
Thank you. Yeah, so everyone can find Tricky Foods on Instagram at Tricky Foods. Let's see, we have our website. If you Google it, we have our Facebook, all those places that you can connect with us, but we're most active on Instagram. You can also find more about our entrepreneurial story on the Screw It, Let's Do This podcast, which is in all the same podcast places. I'm sure anyone can listen to your podcast or on YouTube if you want to see some clips. And then if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can submit an inquiry on our website, and that goes to someone on our team, and then they'll forward it to me if it's meant for me. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on today. It was really fun to be on the other end of the podcast experience. So thank you.
Yes. Okay. Well, we will link everything in the show notes. Thank you again, Therese. And to all the listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back next time with another inspiring interview. Follow the Leaders is produced by Lit Path Studios and music is by Shane Ivers. You can hear more about this show and all the other podcasts at Lit Path Studios by going to www.litpathstudios.com.